The red sun of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the dusty streets of New Terra Colony as Maya Johnson walked home from her shift. The alien world had been humanity's new home for 3 years now, but it still felt strange to see 2 moons hanging in the purple evening sky. Maya pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders as the cold wind picked up, carrying the smell of the nearby processing plants where colonists turned alien minerals into useful materials. New Terra wasn't much to look at yet. Most of the buildings were simple metal structures built for function rather than beauty. The streets were unpaved dirt roads that turned to mud when it rained. But for 30,000 humans, this place was hope. It was a chance to start over, far from an overcrowded Earth where resources grew scarce and conflicts never ended. Maya had been one of the first to volunteer for the colony mission. After 12 years in the Army Rangers, she'd seen enough war to last several lifetimes. The promise of peace on a new world had drawn her like a magnet. Now she worked as a security officer for the colonial government, keeping order among the settlers and watching for threats from the hostile alien species that occasionally tested their defenses. She wasn't a large woman, standing just 5 feet, 6 inches tall with a lean build that didn't immediately suggest the deadly skills hidden beneath her calm exterior. Her dark skin had been weathered by countless hours under alien suns during patrol duties. Most colonists who saw her on the street assumed she was just another worker heading home after a long day. The market district buzzed with evening activity as people finished their shopping before the stores closed. Vendors called out prices for earth vegetables grown in the colony's hydroponic farms. Children ran between the stalls while their parents haggled over the cost of imported goods from the supply ships that arrived every few months. Maya stopped at Chen's Electronics to pick up a replacement power cell for her personal communicator. The elderly shop owner smiled and waved as she entered. "Good evening, Maya. Working late again?" "You know how it is, Mr. Chen. Crime doesn't take days off, even on alien worlds." Chen chuckled as he pulled the power cell from behind the counter. "At least it's been quiet lately. No major incidents since the Zarathi tried to test our defenses last month." Maya nodded, though her expression grew serious at the mention of the alien raiders. The Zarathi were a nomadic species that attacked human settlements when they thought the colonies were vulnerable. 6 months ago, they had launched their most serious assault yet on New Terra. Maya's role in repelling that attack was something she preferred not to discuss. "Hopefully it stays quiet," she said, paying for the power cell. As she left the electronics shop, Maya noticed a crowd gathering near the central plaza. About 50 people had formed a circle around a man standing on a makeshift platform built from shipping crates. The man was tall and broad-shouldered with short blonde hair and the kind of commanding voice that carried across open spaces. Maya recognized him as Carl Brooks, a recent arrival from Earth who had quickly made himself known around the colony. Brooks worked in the mining division, but he spent most of his free time organizing meetings and distributing printed materials that made Maya uncomfortable. She had seen his type before, both on Earth and in the military. Men who blamed others for their problems and found simple answers to complex questions. "Friends and fellow colonists," Brooks called out to the growing crowd. "We came here to build something better than what we left behind on Earth. We came here to show the galaxy that humanity deserves respect among the stars." Several people in the crowd nodded and voiced agreement. Maya slowed her pace, her training automatically assessing the situation. The crowd seemed peaceful, but there was an energy in the air that made her cautious. "But how can we demand respect when we allow weakness to represent us?" Brooks continued. "How can we show strength to hostile alien species when we're divided among ourselves?" Maya's jaw tightened as she recognized the direction of Brooks's speech. She had heard similar words from extremist groups on Earth, people who believed that humanity's diversity was a weakness rather than a strength. The Zarathi see us as easy targets because they don't see unity. They see a species that can't even get along with itself. They see humans who put their ethnic loyalties above their species loyalty. More voices rose from the crowd in support. Maya noticed that several colony workers had joined the group, people she recognized from various departments. Not all of them looked comfortable with Brooks's words, but they listened nonetheless. "We need to ask ourselves hard questions," Brooks said, his voice growing more intense. "Are we here to build a strong human presence in this galaxy, or are we here to repeat the same mistakes that weakened Earth?" Are we here to show alien species that humanity means business? Or are we here to prove that we're too divided to deserve survival? Maya felt a familiar tension building in her muscles, the same alertness that had kept her alive through countless dangerous situations. She recognized the signs of a crowd being manipulated, pushed toward anger and action. Brooks was skilled. At his craft, she had to admit. He spoke about human unity and strength, concepts that most colonists supported, while gradually introducing more divisive ideas. The crowd had grown to nearly 100 people now, and Maya could see that some of them were getting worked up. A few men near the front were shouting agreement with everything Brooks said. Others in the back looked uncertain but remained to listen. Maya considered her options. As a security officer, she had the authority to monitor public gatherings, but Brooks hadn't crossed any legal lines yet. Colonial law protected free speech even when that speech made people uncomfortable. Unless he directly incited violence or made specific threats, she couldn't intervene. Still, every instinct she had, developed during 12 years of military service, told her that this situation could turn dangerous quickly. Maya decided to take the long way home, walking around the edge of the plaza to avoid the crowd. She had no desire to get involved in Brooks' rally, especially after a 12-hour shift patrolling the colony's outer perimeter. All she wanted was to get home, heat up some food, and get a few hours of sleep before her next shift started. But as she moved along the plaza's border, Brooks's voice grew louder and more aggressive. Maya couldn't help but hear his words as they carried across the evening air. "Look around you," Brooks shouted to his audience. "Look at the faces of the people who are supposed to represent human strength in this galaxy. Do you see warriors? Do you see the kind of people who make alien species think twice before attacking us?" Maya's steps slowed, despite her intention to keep walking. She glanced toward the crowd and saw Brooks pointing at different people in the audience, some of whom looked uncomfortable with the attention. "Or do you see the same weakness that made Earth a dying world? Do you see the same divisions that made us easy targets for every alien species that wanted to push humanity around?" Several men near the platform voiced loud agreement. Maya recognized two of them as Pete Williams and Danny Foster, both workers from the mining division who had arrived on the same transport as Brooks 3 months earlier. They had been involved in several minor disturbances since their arrival, mostly bar fights and disputes with other colonists. "The Zarathi don't respect us because they see us as divided," Brooks continued. "They see humans who can't agree on basic questions about our own survival. They see a species that puts individual ethnic identity above the needs of humanity as a whole." Maya's jaw clenched as Brooks's meaning became clearer. She had dealt with this kind of thinking during her military service. Extremist groups that blamed racial diversity for humanity's problems, claiming that ethnic differences made humans weak in the face of external threats. "We need to ask ourselves who really belongs in positions of authority in this colony," Brooks said. "Who really has humanity's best interests at heart? Who can we trust to make the hard decisions when alien threats arise?" The crowd was getting more animated now. Maya could see people nodding and hear voices calling out support from various parts of the audience. The energy was building towards something dangerous. Maya tried to continue walking, but her path was blocked by a group of colonists who had moved to get a better view of Brooks's speech. She found herself pushed closer to the plaza's center, making her more visible to both the speaker and his audience. That was when Brooks noticed her. "There's a perfect example right there," he said, pointing directly at Maya. "Security Officer Johnson, tell me, friends, does she look like the kind of person who strikes fear into alien hearts?" Maya felt dozens of eyes turned toward her. The crowd's attention made her skin crawl, but she kept her expression neutral. She had faced hostile crowds before, during peacekeeping missions on Earth. The key was to stay calm and avoid giving them any reaction that could escalate the situation. "I'm just trying to get home," Maya said loudly enough for people nearby to hear. "I'm not part of your meeting." "But that's exactly the problem," Brooks replied, his voice carrying across the plaza. "People like Johnson here get to wear the security uniform, get to carry weapons, get to make decisions about colony defense. But when the real threats come, when aliens attack our homes, who do you think they'll send to fight?" Maya's training told her to walk away, to remove herself. from the situation before it got worse, but the crowd had grown large enough to block most of the plaza's exits. She was effectively trapped unless she wanted to push through dozens of people. They'll send our real warriors to die while people like her stay safe behind desks, Brooks continued. They'll waste human lives because they care more about looking diverse than being effective. Maya's hands clenched into fists at her sides, but she forced herself to remain calm. Getting angry would only give Brooks more ammunition and make the situation worse. "I think you should move along, lady," Pete Williams called out from near the platform. "This meeting is for real colonists who care about humanity's future." "Yeah," Danny Foster added. "Maybe you should go back to whatever corner of Earth you came from." Several people in the crowd laughed at Foster's comment. Maya felt heat rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. She had heard worse insults during her military career and learned to ignore them. "I have as much right to walk through this plaza as anyone else," Maya said, raising her voice so everyone could hear. "I'm a colonial security officer and a citizen of New Terra Colony." "That's the problem right there," Brooks said, jumping on her words. "People who put their personal rights above the colony's needs. People who think their individual status matters more than human survival." The crowd was getting uglier now. Maya could see hostile faces turning toward her from all directions. Some people looked uncomfortable with the situation, but they remained silent rather than speak up against the mob mentality. "Maybe it's time for people like Johnson to learn their place in the new order," Williams said, stepping down from the platform area and moving toward Maya. "Pete's right," Foster agreed, following Williams. "Some people need to understand that this colony belongs to humans who actually care about fighting for our species." Maya assessed the situation quickly. Williams and Foster were both larger men who outweighed her by at least 50 pounds each. They were moving to flank her while Brooks continued speaking to keep the crowd's attention focused on the confrontation. Two more men she didn't recognize started moving toward her from different angles. The crowd pressed closer, forming a loose circle around the developing confrontation. Maya realized that she was about to face the exact situation she had hoped to avoid. "I don't want any trouble," Maya said clearly. "I'm going home now." She started walking toward what looked like the clearest path through the crowd, but William stepped directly into her way. "I don't think so, lady. I think you need to hear what Mr. Brooks has to say about your kind." Maya looked Williams directly in the eyes, keeping her voice steady and calm. "Step aside, Pete. You don't want to do this." Williams laughed and glanced back at his friends for support. "Listen to her trying to give me orders, like she has any authority over real humans." "Let me through," Maya said again, but William shook his head. "I don't think you understand the situation here, lady. Mr. Brooks is trying to educate people about what's wrong with this colony. People like you are part of the problem." Foster moved closer from the side, cutting off another potential escape route. The two unknown men positioned themselves behind Maya, completing the trap. The crowd pressed in tighter, their faces showing a mix of excitement and aggression that Maya recognized from riot situations. "This is your last warning," Maya said, her voice dropping to a lower tone. "Move out of my way and let me pass." Williams stepped closer instead of backing away. He was now less than 2 feet from Maya, close enough that she could smell alcohol on his breath. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. "Or what?" Williams asked with a sneer. "What are you going to do about it? Call for backup? Report us to your security friends?" "Yeah," Foster added. "Maybe you should learn some respect for people who actually belong here." Brooks had stopped speaking and was watching the confrontation with obvious satisfaction. The crowd had gone quiet, sensing that violence was about to break out. Maya could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. "Look at her," Brooks called out to the audience, standing there like she owns the place, like she has some right to walk among real colonists without showing proper respect. Maya's training kicked in automatically. She noted the positions of all 4 men, calculated distances and angles, identified the best targets for maximum effect. Her breathing slowed as her mind shifted into combat mode, though her exterior remained calm. "Last chance," she said quietly, speaking only to Williams. "Walk away." Instead of backing down, Williams reached out and grabbed Maya's arm just above the elbow. His grip was tight and meant to hurt. I think you need to stay right here and listen to what Mr. Brooks has to say about your kind, Williams said, squeezing harder. That was when something changed in Maya's posture. Her shoulders straightened slightly. Her weight shifted to the balls of her feet. Her eyes became focused and cold in a way that would have warned anyone with military experience to back away immediately. Take your hand off me, Maya said, her voice now carrying a dangerous edge that cut through the crowd noise. Williams either didn't notice the change or didn't understand what it meant. Instead of releasing her arm, he tightened his grip and started pulling Maya toward the center of the plaza. Come on, everyone wants to get a better look at you, Williams said. Maya moved without warning. Her free hand shot up and broke Williams' grip with a precise strike to his wrist. Before he could react, she grabbed his thumb and twisted it backward until he cried out in pain and stumbled away from her. The crowd gasped at the sudden violence. Foster immediately moved toward Maya from the side, swinging a wild punch at her. Maya ducked under Foster's swing and drove her elbow into his solar plexus with surgical precision. Foster doubled over, gasping for air and unable to breathe properly. He dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. What the hell? One of the unknown men shouted, lunging at Maya from behind. Maya spun around and caught his wrist as he reached for her. She used his forward momentum against him, stepping aside and redirecting his motion so that he crashed face first into the ground. The man groaned and rolled over, blood streaming from his broken nose. The fourth attacker hesitated, suddenly realizing that his three friends had been disabled in less than 10 seconds. Maya turned toward him with the same cold expression, and he took several steps backward. Anyone else? Maya asked, her voice carrying clearly across the now silent plaza. The crowd had gone completely quiet. People stared in shock at the three, men on the ground and at Maya standing calmly in the center of the circle. Williams was holding his injured wrist and looking at Maya with a mixture of pain and disbelief. This is what happens when you corner a predator, Maya said, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. You all seem to have forgotten something important about human nature. Brooks finally found his voice. This is exactly what I was talking about. Violence and aggression from people who are supposed to represent law and order. Maya turned toward Brooks with the same cold stare that had made the fourth attacker back down. They put their hands on me first. Everything that happened after that was self-defense. You attacked 4 colonists, Brooks protested. 4 men who were just trying to have a conversation. 4 men who surrounded me, blocked my path, and physically grabbed me, Maya corrected. 4 men who thought they could intimidate someone they saw as weak and helpless. She looked around at the crowd, making eye contact with as many people as possible. You want to talk about human strength? You want to talk about what makes humans worthy of respect in this galaxy? It's not about skin color or ethnic background. It's about this. Maya gestured toward the 3 men still recovering, on the ground. It's about the ability to fight back when someone tries to hurt you. It's about refusing to be a victim. It's about showing predators that humans don't back down from a fight. Foster had managed to get back to his feet, though he was still breathing heavily. You crazy witch. We weren't trying to hurt you. We just wanted to talk. You grabbed me, Maya said simply. You surrounded me and put your hands on me without permission. In my world, that's assault. And assault gets answered with violence. The crowd began to murmur among themselves. Some people looked shocked by what they had witnessed. Others seemed impressed by Maya's fighting skills. A few appeared thoughtful, as if they were reconsidering their opinions about the woman they had just seen disable 3 larger men with ease. This conversation is over, Maya announced. Anyone who wants to continue it can make an appointment to see me during my office hours. She started walking toward the edge of the plaza again. This time the crowd parted to let her through without resistance. No one seemed eager to test her abilities further, but as Maya reached the plaza's edge, she heard Brooks calling after her. Running away, Johnson? Afraid to face the truth about what you really are? Maya stopped walking and turned around slowly. Brooks stood on his makeshift platform with his arms crossed, a smug expression on his face. The crowd watched nervously, unsure what would happen next. What exactly do you think I am, Brooks? Maya asked, her voice carrying across the silent plaza. I think you're exactly the kind of person who's making humanity look weak to alien species, Brooks replied. Someone who solves problems with violence instead of intelligence. Someone who can't control their temper when faced with legitimate criticism. Maya walked back toward the center of the plaza. The crowd instinctively moved aside to create a path for her. Williams, Foster, and the third man were still on the ground, though they were beginning to recover from their injuries. You think I'm weak? Maya asked, stopping about 10 feet from Brooks's platform. I think you're a perfect example of what's wrong with our colony's leadership, Brooks said. Quick to anger, quick to violence, unable to engage in civilized discussion about important issues. A voice from the back of the crowd suddenly spoke up. Wait a minute. I know her. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. A young woman pushed through the crowd toward the front. Maya recognized her as Lisa Parker, one of the newer arrivals who worked in the colony's communications department. That's Maya Johnson, Lisa said, pointing at Maya. She's the one who saved us during the Zerathi attack. A murmur went through the crowd. Several people looked confused, as if they were trying to remember something important. What are you talking about? Brooks demanded. The Zerathi raid 6 months ago, Lisa continued, her voice getting stronger. When those alien raiders broke through our outer defenses and got into the colony proper, she's the one who held them off. Maya felt uncomfortable with the attention, but she remained silent. She had never talked publicly about what happened during the Zerathi attack, preferring to let official reports speak for themselves. That's impossible, William said from the ground, still holding his injured wrist. She's just a security officer, a desk worker. No, another voice called out. An older man pushed forward from the crowd. Maya recognized him as Frank Rodriguez, the colony's chief of security and her immediate supervisor. She's not just a security officer, Rodriguez said, looking directly at Brooks. She's a former Army Ranger with 12 years of combat experience. And Lisa is right about the Zerathi attack. The crowd's mood was shifting. People who had been hostile moments before now looked uncertain. Some seemed to be remembering news reports and stories they had heard but forgotten. Tell them, Frank, Maya said quietly, since it seems like everyone wants to know. Rodriguez nodded and addressed the crowd. 6 months ago, a Zerathi raiding party broke through our perimeter defenses at 3 different points. They had superior numbers and better weapons. Our regular security forces were overwhelmed. Brooks looked less confident now, but he tried to maintain his aggressive stance. What does this have to do with anything? Maya was off duty when the attack began, Rodriguez continued. She was at home, relaxing after a double shift. But when the alarm sounded, she grabbed her personal weapons and ran toward the fighting, instead of toward the evacuation shelters. Maya remembered that night clearly. The Zerathi had been better organized than usual, using coordinated attacks to stretch the colony's defenses thin. She had known immediately that the situation was desperate. The aliens had broken into the residential district, Rodriguez said. Families were trapped in their homes. Our security teams were pinned down by superior firepower. Maya went in alone. One person can't fight off an entire alien raiding party, Foster protested from the ground. You're right, Rodriguez agreed. One normal person can't. But Maya isn't normal people. Lisa stepped forward again. My family was trapped in our apartment when the Zerathi broke into our building. We could hear them moving through the hallways, breaking down doors, looking for humans to capture or kill. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. We thought we were going to die, Lisa continued. Then we heard gunfire in the hallway, different kinds of gunfire, human weapons fighting back against alien weapons. Maya closed her eyes briefly, remembering the narrow hallways and the close-quarters combat. The Zerathi had been confident, expecting little resistance from human civilians. They hadn't been prepared for a trained soldier. When the shooting stopped, Maya knocked on our door, Lisa said. She had blood on her clothes and her hands, but none of it was hers. She helped us get to the evacuation point, then went back for more families. Rodriguez picked up the story. She cleared 3 apartment buildings by herself, killed 17 Zerathi raiders with a combination of firearms, explosives, and hand-to-hand combat. When she ran out of ammunition, she used a combat knife and improvised weapons. Brooks was looking less sure of himself now. Several people in the crowd were staring at Maya with new understanding. The official reports are available for anyone who wants to read them, Rodriguez continued. Maya's actions during the Zarathi attack saved at least 40 civilian lives. She single-handedly turned the tide of the battle and gave our main security forces time to regroup and counterattack. Why didn't you ever tell anyone? A woman in the crowd asked Maya directly. Maya shrugged. It was my job. I did what needed to be done. I don't need recognition for doing my job. Your job was colony security, Brooks said, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Not single-handedly fighting off alien raiders. My job is protecting the people of this colony, Maya corrected. Whatever that requires. Williams struggled to his feet, still holding his wrist. If you're such a great warrior, why didn't you kill us? Why did you hold back? Maya looked at him with the same cold expression she had worn during the fight. Because you're not alien raiders trying to kill innocent families. You're just stupid humans who don't know when to keep their mouths shut. Rodriguez stepped closer to Brooks's platform. This woman has more combat experience than the rest of our security force combined. She's killed more enemies in defense of this colony than anyone else here. And you want to question her loyalty to humanity? The crowd began to murmur among themselves again. Maya could see shame and embarrassment on many faces. People who had been cheering Brooks' anti-diversity message just minutes before were now looking at Maya with respect and admiration. She's the reason this colony is still here, Lisa said loudly. She's the reason my family is still alive. And you people were ready to attack her because of the color of her skin. The silence in the plaza stretched for several long seconds. Brooks stood on his platform looking confused and angry, as if the crowd had betrayed him somehow. Williams, Foster, and the third man were all back on their feet now. But they kept their distance from Maya and avoided making eye contact with her. This doesn't change anything, Brooks finally said, though his voice lacked the confidence it had carried earlier. Individual heroism doesn't solve the fundamental problems facing our colony. What problems? Rodriguez asked. The problem of having people willing to fight and die to protect their neighbors? The problem of having trained soldiers ready to defend civilians against alien attacks? The problem of division, Brooks replied. The problem of conflicting loyalties that make us weak as a species. Maya stepped closer to Brooks' platform. What conflicting loyalties? I've lived on this colony for 3 years. I've bled for these people. I've killed aliens who tried to hurt them. What more loyalty do you want? You're missing the point, Brooks said. It's not about individual cases. It's about the bigger picture. No, Maya said firmly. You're the one missing the point. You want to talk about human strength? You want to talk about what makes our species worthy of survival in a galaxy full of hostile aliens? She gestured toward the crowd around them. Look at these people. Really look at them. We've got colonists from every continent on Earth. Different skin colors, different languages, different cultures, and we're all here together, building something new. Brooks crossed his arms defensively. Diversity doesn't equal strength. Unity comes from shared identity, not from mixing incompatible groups. You're wrong, Maya said, and I can prove it. She turned to address the entire crowd. How many of you remember the Zarathi attack? Not just the stories you heard, but the actual night it happened? About half the people in the plaza raised their hands. Who was fighting alongside me that night? Maya continued. Who helped evacuate families and treat wounded colonists? Lisa spoke up first. Dr. Kim from the medical center. He stayed at his post treating injuries even when the fighting was happening right outside the hospital. Jin Williams from engineering. Another voice added. He kept the power grid running so our defenses could function. Maria Santos coordinated the evacuation shelters, someone else called out. She made sure everyone had food and water while we waited for the all clear. More names were called out from the crowd. Maya nodded as she listened to each one. Doctor. Kim is Korean, Maya said. Jin Williams is Chinese American. Maria Santos came here from Mexico. Every single person who helped save this colony that night came from a different background. Brooks tried to interrupt, but Maya continued speaking. The Zarathi expected us to be weak because we looked different from each other. They thought humans who didn't share the same ethnic background couldn't work together effectively. They were wrong. She pointed at Brooks. You're making the same mistake they made. You think diversity makes us weak, but you're looking at it backwards. How am I looking at it backwards? Brooks demanded. Because you think being human is about looking the same or coming from the same place, Maya replied. But that's not what makes us human. What makes us human is what we do when we're threatened. Maya walked closer to the platform. When the Zarathi attacked, nobody asked about my skin color before accepting my help. Nobody cared where my ancestors came from when I was pulling their families out of burning buildings. The crowd was listening intently now. Even Brooks seemed interested in what she was saying, though he still looked skeptical. Being human isn't about your DNA or your ethnic background, Maya continued. It's about being willing to fight for people who can't fight for themselves. It's about putting your life on the line to protect strangers. It's about building something better than what you left behind. She gestured toward the colony's buildings around them. Look at what we've built here. Look at what we've accomplished. We took a dead rock in space and turned it into a home for 30,000 people. We did that together, all of us, regardless of where we came from originally. But we need to be united, Brooks protested. We need common goals and shared identity. We do have common goals, Maya said. Survival, security, building a future for our children. Those goals don't depend on having the same skin color. Rodriguez stepped forward. Maya's right. The strongest military units I've ever served with were diverse units. Different backgrounds, different skills, different perspectives. That diversity made us more effective, not less. Williams, who had been quiet since Maya injured his wrist, suddenly spoke up. But the aliens see us as divided. They think we're easy targets. Maya turned toward Williams. The aliens who thought we were easy targets are dead, Pete. I killed them. Does that sound like weakness to you? Williams looked down at the ground and didn't answer. The Zarathi learned something important. That night, Maya continued, they learned that humans don't abandon each other when things get dangerous. They learned that we fight harder when we're protecting people we care about, regardless of what those people look like. She looked around at the crowd again. That's the message we're sending to every alien species in this galaxy. That humanity stands together. That we protect our own. That attacking one of us means fighting all of us. Brooks was looking less confident by the minute. Several people in the crowd were nodding agreement with Maya's words. 6 months ago, you all saw what human unity really looks like, Maya said. It doesn't look like everyone having the same ethnic background. It looks like different people, working together toward common goals. It looks like Dr. Kim treating wounded colonists while Jin Williams keeps the lights on, and Maria Santos feeds scared families. She paused for a moment, then continued. And it looks like a black woman from Detroit fighting room to room against alien raiders to save Korean families and Mexican children, and white retirees from Ohio. The crowd was completely silent now. Even Brooks seemed to have run out of arguments. That's what makes us human, Maya concluded. Not our skin color, not where our grandparents came from, but our willingness to bleed and die for each other when it matters most. She started walking toward the edge of the plaza again. This time, nobody tried to stop her. Meeting's over, she called back to Brooks. Next time you want to question someone's loyalty to humanity, make sure you know what they've actually done for humanity first.